Welcome back to New Mexico Media Makers. Joining us now is local writer and director Hannah Macpherson. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on the show today. So let's jump right on into it. Tell us how you got started in this thing we call the film industry.
Well, I've been wanting to tell stories my whole life and started making movies when I was about 12 with my dad's VHS camera, just making my sister play every role imaginable, which she still hasn't forgiven me for. And I really consider it telling stories. So I thought about being a writer and writing novels and whatever, and then I chose this as my medium before I even knew what that meant to be a filmmaker, but I wanted to make movies. So I grew up in Albuquerque, but I went to film school in Los Angeles. And lived there for 6 years, and I feel like I went to Loyola Marymount University and I got a really grounded education in kind of the basics of storytelling and all the tools that we have at our disposal as filmmakers, and then graduated right into reality TV, and it took me about 4 years to figure out that while it was, a very nice window into human behavior, reality TV really didn't have a lot to do with the film industry, and so that's when I decided to move back here to New Mexico where the industry is. So.
And where did you work on reality shows?
Started in LA when I graduated college, and then moved to New York and spent 2 years on reality shows there. But because it was reality shows and it was wife swap, I probably did all 50 states, finding families willing to be subjected to our torture. So, yeah.
Well, writing to me is always fascinating because I think it's the basis for everything. For any kind of a decent film, any kind of a decent book, obviously, the writing is everything. To me, it's like the mechanics for an airline. I mean, the pilot is great, but if the mechanics don't work on it and make it fly, nobody works. So as a writer, what are the challenges you face as a female writer in a market that's not necessarily a big market?
Well, first of all, you touched on exactly my biggest mantra, which is that story, 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 story. So it's all about the story. And until you have a worthy story to tell, don't even think about all the other steps, which we know there are hundreds of them in order to make a movie. But start with the story. And so that's actually why I started writing, is I always wanted to be a director, and then I started writing as a means to an end. And learning how much work it takes to get a bunch of people together, get actors together. So I wasn't going to waste my friend's free time on a bad story. So I am, a glutton for punishment when it comes to creative criticism. I look for constructive criticism. I seek it out. For me, writing isn't about writing, it's about rewriting. And so you have to be extremely self-critical. And I'm good about knowing which notes work for me now and which don't, and I don't take them personally. And so I'm really good at, I think, hopefully reworking the story. Of course, at some point you can rework it to death. And in terms of being a woman, I just think of myself as a human. But I usually have female protagonists. I usually think about stories that have characters who show what I consider to be feminine virtues, whether they're women or men. And I tend to like to talk about conflict and compassion. And so I think that it's important that I have a female voice, and there isn't enough female voices out there. And so hopefully can add to the mix a little bit.
So you've had some films do considerably well with female leads. Will you talk more about that?
Yeah. I mean, I have my best friend is an actress, Rebecca Wiggins, and she's in some ways my muse. She's extremely talented, so I'm lucky because I think once you get past the writing phase and you go into casting, I'm no idiot. I surround myself with people who are 110% good at their jobs because it makes me look good, and I want people who can do all the things I can't, and I respect them for it. And so I love to write for her because we both want to be working a lot. And so I want to be directing and she wants to be acting, so we got together and I started writing for her. I guess there's a chance that I think it's important that she's a woman because let's say if I had a best friend who was a guy and he was an actor, and I've written for males before, but I really like writing for women. And so far, I've actually, since moving back to New Mexico, I've directed 25 short films or web series, and I bet she's the lead in 21 of them. And actually the other films, they're female leads as well. So,
you boomeranged back to New Mexico for a reason after New York.
Oh yeah. So
tell us about that.
I wrote a couple scripts and submitted them to the Governor's Cup, which was a competition spearheaded by Governor Richardson in 2006. and there were 450 script submissions under 10 pages, and there were 4 winners. And it's a good example of just kind of doing the work. Like, I was just writing to be writing and to be keeping it fresh. And my dad told me about this competition, and I actually I almost missed the deadline. And I was visiting my sister in Little Rock, and she was like, "Oh, I don't have time to run us to the post office." And I was like, "It's no big deal. At least I wrote them. I don't need to actually turn them in." And then she was like, "No, I'll take you." And she was late for her soccer practice or whatever. But anyway, got them in the mail, and then it changed my whole life because I was able to come, and we had to pitch our projects. There was 12 finalists, and we pitched our projects, and then I got to come here and shoot Birthday. And the grant was $5,000. And that's a female lead who was 6 years old. And it's important, I like male-female relationships, so there's an old man in it, and it's kind of, that movie's about like life and death and how death is a labor, like birth. And more so than female characters, that's actually my passion, is writing about like catharses and crises, so how people change. So I use death and supernatural stuff a lot to talk about, like, because I feel that forces people to talk about the things that scare us. And women are better at that too. Women are better at talking about how they feel, which is, then you have conflict because men can't talk about their feelings. And so,
Well,
yeah.
I'll just come back later.
Right. So, I mean, it's important to me to have relationship in all movies,
So that idea of catharses and things that scare us, that's highlighted in Those Who Wait.
Yes.
What's that film?
This is a feature film that I wrote that I'm hoping to direct here in New Mexico, starring Rebecca Wiggins. And we have some local producers on board, and we raised $12,000 with Indiegogo. And we wanted closer to $60,000 because we want to pay everyone who's been working. We've all been working together for free for 5 years. And so we didn't hit that mark, which was frustrating, and we pushed from last September to shooting this September. And we're still trying to raise the money, but we're also just trying to be realistic and make this movie the way we know how to make movies. And we'll all have to sleep on top of each other in a tent, and we know people who will work for free. And it might change some things a little bit, but I don't think it'll change the quality, because once again, like, the story is great, and so we could shoot it on VHS if we had to, and I think it will be a really great movie.
So this is a passion project.
It's a passion project. Yes, it's like so passionate, it's painful.
Well, let's see how painfully passionate this is in your clip. Can we roll that clip?
It's only until I finish my paper. It's good for me up here. It's really quiet. No service, no internet, no Scott. I've been so distracted since the accident.
We want to see more, Hannah.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I hope we get to shoot it in September. It's our plan, so.
Now, being a writer and a director and all that combined, when you get on set and you're filming and the actors, maybe they're not interpreting it the way you want it to, or it's kind of growing organically out of what you've seen, especially if you've been poring over it for months, sometimes even years writing. Is it difficult to let go sometimes, or do you have to rein people back in and say, no, it's supposed to be this way? How do you deal with those demons of just letting it go sometimes?
Well, I think that's actually the whole point of being a director, is to let go. So as a writer, I'm try to be really structured and very specific. And then I get on set as the director, and I'm usually like, who wrote this crap? And then you get to play. So as long as you've pre-produced well and you're really on set and everyone kind of knows what their jobs are, I really respect that actors know their job better than me, and that they're going to bring something to the table that I didn't see. You know, the writer might have problems with that. Like, oh, I didn't want that brought to the table.
But
as
you're the
director,
writer too. How do you not defend that?
I have no problem shutting that door. And I also being an editor, I understand it's not a play. There's not one right take. And sometimes we won't know till we're in the bag. So I'm very comfortable, you know, and sometimes you don't have time to get 10 takes, fine. But you know the scene where you need it. And you're going to need to bracket those performances. And you need something a little darker and you need something a little lighter. And so you just get all of that. I think that's one of the biggest things I've learned is like, and I teach acting a lot. And I say, don't ever think that a director is telling you did it wrong. Every take is right. That's not really true. But, you know, and then I'll try to give some structure based on, you know, something different. Like right before this moment, you're walking in this scene, you don't know this, you know, it's not in the script, but your mother just called and your grandma went to the hospital. And that will paint this scene with a totally different texture that may have nothing to do with the script, but I know the actor well enough to know that it will give them this, they're distracted or they're, you know, and it can play in the scene. And so that's fun for me, is how can we have a lot of options once we get to the edit bay. You know, and how can we surprise each other? I'm going to surprise the actors, and I'm hoping that they will surprise me.
So you create a very open, inclusive, artistically fertile environment on your set.
Yes, all about trust.
All about trust.
Yeah, and I think if everyone is inspired by the story, which is another reason I've been on a lot of sets where everyone's excited to do the work, but they don't care about the story. And if everyone's really excited to tell the story, then magic happens.
Anna, tell me, what's the one thing that you want to get out of your experience being a New Mexico filmmaker right now?
I just want to move people. And I like interacting with other people who are telling stories, and I like the relationships on and off set and the dialogue that's going on. And I think it's really important to keep making movies here, because I find, you know, I have to go to LA a lot for meetings and things, and I'm hoping to have to go there for more meetings because it means good things are happening.
Oh, yes.
But there's a creative space and a creative energy, you know, in Albuquerque, and I know it's happening other places too, like Little Rock and Denver and things like that. And it's important to like tell all types of stories with all types of people. And so I think there's something cool happening right now in New Mexico, and everyone should take advantage of it.
We want you to keep telling your story and moving us here. Thank you for being on the show
today.
today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was a blast.
Well, thank you for joining us today on New Mexico Media Makers with our guests Alejandro Montoya Marin and Hannah Macpherson.
Ooh, those rolled off.
We're your hosts, Catherine Palafas and Mike Gaba.
That's me.
Tune in next week to see what's hot and happening in New Mexico media. Until then, keep smiling. You'll never know when you're on camera. You're on camera.
No, I didn't
Smile.
brush my teeth.